Have you ever wondered how your medicine cabinet is impacting the environment? Hello, my successful and healthy earthlings. Mihaela Ragush here, naturopath and founder of the Natural Health Podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to talk just about that. I'm going to go through how your medicine, your pills, is actually impacting our environment. I'm going to talk about our environment overall, how the pills are impacting our environment, and I'm going to give you 3 environmentally friendly steps for your medicine cabinet. At the end of this podcast, I'm also going to give you an opportunity to join a health and success-oriented community that will provide you with so much support by joining the newsletter below. Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, where we bring awareness to sustainable health in the business hustle space. The Natural Health Podcast is perfect for the high-performing, business-minded individuals who want to work with their biochemistry to achieve success and optimal health. It's Mondays with Mihaela. That's right, me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Absolutely love, and appreciate your support like I always do. On Mondays, I'm here to provide you with simple, savvy, and sustainable health hacks to optimize your health. That's right. And the way we're going to optimize your health is by optimizing the environment's health. I know I sound like an absolute hippie, and I'm probably going to sound like a hippie today, but that is okay because our environment is so important. If our environment is not okay, we are not going to be okay. I'm not going to be okay. You're not going to be okay. Your family is not going to be okay, because it is our environment that provides us with energy, with health, with air, with water, with sunshine. The basics of health, our environment provides us with that. So let's talk about a little bit about our environment. And I know that some people actually don't believe in climate change. I'm not here to argue, say climate change is real or not real. That's for you to do your research on if you want to. What I'm here to tell you is that climate change is definitely leading to noticeable effects in the environment. If you see it or not, that's up to you. But I can see the changes happening around just here in Australia, yet alone the changes are seeing in Iceland and so forth, right? As we all know, that has consequences on our health. As our environment is impacted, so is our health, such as rising rates of asthma and new patterns of infectious diseases. Yes, they can all literally be linked to climate change, but that's a huge topic. Probably should do a whole episode on that, right? The key drivers of climate change in greenhouse gases is greenhouse emission. Our healthcare system plays a large role, contributing close to 10% of our nation's greenhouse gas. So it's interesting because we're always looking down on those cars and being like, oh, it's the car's fault. But what about the healthcare system? They're having a huge impact on this, which I'm going to go into. I'm so excited about. So actually, over the last 50 years, human activities, particularly the burning of fossil fuels, have released sufficient quantities of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, which has been trapped with trapped heat in the lower atmosphere and affects the global climate, which is crazy. In the last 130 years, the world has warmed by approximately 0.85 degrees Celsius. Each of the last 3 decades has been successively warmer than any preceding since the 1850s. So we're getting warmer, we're getting hotter and hotter, and we're definitely not getting hotter in a good way, like, hey, you're hot. It's like, oh no, our environment's hot. What's that causing, right? So it's causing sea levels to rise, glaciers are melting, precipitation patterns are changing, extreme weather events are becoming more intense and frequent, all those storms, all those tropical storms and crazy things happening. Climate change affects the social and environmental determinants of health, right? We're talking about clean air, safe drinking water, sufficient food and secure shelter. That's how it is actually impacting us. What we need to understand is between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause approximately 250,000 additional deaths per year from malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, and heat stress. As simple as heat stress. I know, it sounds crazy, but something as simple as heat stress can cause death. Something as simple as diarrhea can cause death, malaria in itself, and malnutrition. Direct damage causes of health is estimated between $2 to $4 billion a year by 2030. Look, I know you're probably like, Mahela, why are you giving us this news? This is quite depressing. Well, I'm giving you the news because you can actually make a change right at home. So the areas with weak health infrastructure, mostly in developed countries, will be the least able to cope with assistance to prepare and respond. So reducing emissions, greenhouse gases through better transport, food and energy sources, a choice can result in improved health and better air pollution and so forth. But yes, I'm telling you all this because you have a role in this movie, right? This movie, this thing called life, you play a role in it. I play a role in it. And as simple as going back to basics, and I'm not going to sit here and say, don't use your car. I'm not going to sit here and say, be hippie and all those things. I'm going to sit here and say, have a look at your health, and let's have a look at your medicine and pill cabinet. So how your pills impact the environment, let's look into it. You must be like, what? My pills, the pills I take, if that's pharmaceutical, that's going to, or, supplements, that's going to impact me? What? It's going to impact the world? It's going to make glaciers melt? Yes. If you are taking, this sounds crazy, I know, but hey, if you're on statins or if you're on heart medication, or if you're on, let's say, antipsychotic medication, antidepressant, anti-anxiety, you're definitely making those glaciers, melt a little bit more. I know it sounds a bit brutal, but let's get into it and understand how that's all happening, right? I'm not saying stop your medication. That's not what I'm saying. Please do not stop your medication. Talk to your healthcare professional. What I'm saying is that it is having an impact. I'm just educating you here, right? So within our healthcare system, pharmaceutical drugs and chemicals are the largest line item contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. That is right. Who would have thought, okay? Yet our recent studies found that the global pharmaceutical industry is not only a significant contributor to global warming, but it's also dirtier than the global automotive production sector. Pharmaceuticals are dirtier than cars. They're dirtying our air more, right? We think, wow, they're making us healthy. Well, are they? Are they really? What are they doing to our environment? It's a surprise to find out how little attention research has actually looked into this, right? Has actually looked into the greenhouse emission from pharmaceuticals. There's not much research out there. I actually had to really dig deep to find this stuff. And when I found this stuff, I found other stuff, which was just kind of like, usually it takes me, put time aside to do research for these podcasts for you individuals out there listening. And on this particular episode, I actually spend a lot of hours and a lot of time. And the reason why is because there's so much hidden stuff out there that's just, it's available, but it's not, our attention isn't brought to it, okay? And that's what I'm here to do today, is to bring your attention to this. So there's only 2 other studies that had some relevance. One looked at the environmental impact of the US healthcare system, and the other looked at pollution, mostly water discharged by drug manufacturers. And this study that I found was the first to assess the carbon footprint of the pharmaceutical sector. Huge, right? So more than 200 companies presented the global pharmaceutical market. So they looked at 200 pharmaceutical companies, yet only 25 consistently reported their direct and indirect greenhouse gas emissions in the last 5 years. Of those, only 15 reported their emissions since 2012. So there's 200 or so companies, and only 25 of them are actually telling us what they're doing, right? What? Only 25 out of 200 companies. That's like 12.5%, if my math's right. That's like nothing, okay? One immediate and striking result that they found in this study is that the pharmaceutical sector is far more from green. They assessed the sector's emission for each $1 million of revenue in 2015. Large businesses will always generate more emission, of course, than smaller ones. That makes absolutely sense. They found out that 48.55 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per $1 million. That's about 55% greater than the automotive sector at 31.4 tons of the million in the same year. Okay, let's go through that again. Okay, I know I read that, but let's look at what that means. That actually means that pharmaceutical companies, so how much emissions they had and how much money they made, they let out so much more carbon dioxide into our air compared to the automotive companies, the cars. And the cars are the ones that are getting the beating. That's all you hear. Turn into electric cars, do electric cars, because, the greenhouse gases from cars is bad. How about the pharmaceutical companies? Come on, people, wake up. This is saying that 55% was greater. This was in 2015. They restricted analysis to the direct emission generated by companies' operations and the indirect emissions generated by electricity purchased by these companies from the respective companies. Okay, so what they're trying to say here is there's extreme variability between pharmaceuticals too. They also found that emissions intensity vary greatly within the pharmaceutical sector, right? And I'm going to mention some names here, some pharmaceutical companies, so bear with me, right? So the German company Bayer AG reported emissions of 9.7 megatons of carbon dioxide and revenues of 51.4 billion, yield an emission intensity of 189 tons per $1 million. This intensity level is far more than 4 times greater than the overall pharmaceutical sector. So these guys are definitely pumping our airs with some not nice stuff, right? In addition, pharmaceutical waste throughout the global supply chain can lead to environmental and animal toxicities, and in the case of antibiotic residue, to antimicrobial resistance, aka superbugs. Okay, this is the scary part here, right? Okay, so what they're saying is that these pharmaceutical wastes can lead to environmental issues, but also animal toxicity. And also the antibiotics that are used, the residue of them is actually helping us become resistant to antibiotics, which is actually a bad thing, which is creating superbugs. I don't know if you've ever heard about superbugs before. I should probably do a podcast on superbugs. They're resistant to any antibiotics you take. You might have to take 5-10 rounds of antibiotics before you can fight the superbug. Crazy. In 2018, 5.8 billion prescriptions were filled in the US, and I'm talking about US here. So meanwhile, consumers spent $34 billion over-the-counter medication. Many of these drugs are life-saving, offering, benefits for people, and things like that. I understand that 100%, but it's about making your medicine cabinet a little bit more friendlier while, taking the medication that you need to take. It's just educating you. This isn't saying stop taking your medication because you impact the environment. All I'm trying to say here is bring a little bit of attention to the fact of what pharmaceutical companies are doing to our green gases, right? So the World Health Organization actually predicts that climate change will have an overwhelming negative impact on the world's health. Pharmaceutical companies will therefore have to respond to this. They're going to have to respond and do something different, right? So a report actually released by Morgan Stanley predicts the pharmaceutical industry will benefit from a warming planet as the spread of disease will become more prevalent, relative opportunities for medicine markets. So this is that line is a little bit controversial in that. Okay, so what this is saying is this report released by Morgan Stanley is saying climate change is happening, and because climate change is happening, our environment's getting warmer. Because our environment's getting warmer, we're getting more diseases, which means then the pharmaceutical company is coming up making more medications and is actually making more money. Okay. You can have your own thoughts about that. I definitely have my own thoughts about that, right? It comes down to climate compliance, right? They also estimated how much the pharmaceutical sector would have to reduce its emission to comply to the Paris Agreement. A bit political here, but hey. So they found out by 2025, the overall pharma sector would need to reduce its emission intensely by about 59% from 2015 levels. So in 10 years, it has to reduce 59%. That is a lot. It's definitely not going to reduce its production by 59%. This is clearly a far cry from the current levels. It's interesting to note that some of the 15 largest companies are already operating at that level. So that's crazy. So this is saying that, if they are leaking, all of this stuff in our waters, it's killing our animals, and then it's killing, it's impacting our water, it's making our environment hotter. It's definitely having an impact. And this is just a little thing that I want to bring to your attention and say, okay, so you are taking medications, let's say, but how can you make your medicine cabinet a little bit more environmentally friendly? Let's go into that. Let's do 3 environmentally friendly steps for your medicine cabinet. Number 1, and I talk about this to everyone, not even just making your environmental, cabinet nicer, is review your medicine cabinet, right? Review your medicines with your doctor, with your medications. If you've been on the same medication for 15 years, why hasn't it gone up? Why hasn't it gone down? What is happening? Are you getting better? Are you still having the symptoms? Why are you still taking the medication, right? Review this. Now, book in with your doctor. Take all your medications in. Tell them your symptoms. Run blood tests. What do I actually need to take? What do I no longer need to take? Because if they come back and they say, oh, actually, you know what? You can drop this medication by half. You have saved the planet. I know it sounds crazy, but that glacier may not melt because you're not taking that medication. And review it to see what you can do, what you can supplement with lifestyle, but work with a healthcare professional. If you need to work with a doctor, if you need to work with a nutritionist, a naturopath, alternative doctor, functional doctor, whoever you connect with, whoever you believe can assist you, work with them. Number 2 is incorporate lifestyle medicine. Boom. Lifestyle medicine is actually helping the environment. It's not causing it. So for example, let's say an individual is on antidepressants. Okay. Maybe on antidepressants. Okay, cool. Let's say they're taking 2 pills a day. Okay. And then they incorporate lifestyle medicines, which have been proven to assist individuals with depression, anxiety, such as yoga, diet, exercise, absolutely. So doctor goes, hey, you can drop yours by half. Amazing, right? You have reduced your medication by half by incorporating lifestyle medicine. The third one is please do not flush your medication down the toilet. It contaminates our water and therefore causes all of these poor animals to suffer, causes contamination in our water. That water evaporates, goes into the air. We're breathing that stuff in, right? Please do not do that. Read the label, remove those medications, give them back to your pharmacist, give them back to your doctor. Read the instructions on the packet of how to destroy or remove this medication from you. Okay, so there you have it, right? So we spoke about I could keep going on and on and on for hours and hours and hours. We spoke about environment, how pharmaceuticals are impacting our environment, and what you can do to review your medicine cabinet to make sure that, you're helping out our environment a little bit, but also helping out yourself. So there you have it. If you love this podcast, please share it with anyone who you think might be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I love what she's talking about. And join the Natural Health newsletter. Comes out every Friday. Bonuses, specials, news, research straight for you in your inbox. No BS, just straight pure information. You won't have to scroll to find it all. It's right there. The bonuses are right there for you. I'm always looking out for you. There you have it. Join by clicking the link below and share it with someone that you absolutely love and you want them to live forever. There you have it. And do what you do best. Love, like, share, all those things. And remember, the missing link between failure and success is your health.
Content and information provided here is opinion of Mahela Raguse and is for information purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. It is not intended to provide medical advice or take the place of medical advice or any current treatment you're undertaking. Consult your own medical professionals for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the Natural Health Podcast. It is advised that you consult your doctor or healthcare professional in relation to any health concerns you may be having. Mahela Raguse does not take responsibility for any health consequences which occur from a person listening, viewing, or reading this content. Under no circumstances shall the Natural Podcast, Mahela Raguse, any guests or contributors to the Natural Podcast, or any employees, associates, or affiliates of Mahela Raguse be responsible for damages arising from the information provided on the Natural Podcast. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical conditions in either yourself or others. Please note, if you're taking prescription, do not stop your medication or start a new protocol, including but not limited to supplements, diet, lifestyle changes without consulting a doctor or healthcare professional. If you or any person has a medical concern, you should consult with your healthcare provider or seek other professional medical advice. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something that you have read or heard on the Natural Podcast or in any linked materials. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. Neither Mahela Raguse nor the publisher of this content takes responsibility for the possible health consequences of any person or persons reading or listening or following the information in the educational content.